Hi, I'm Allison Parker Young. I'm Associate Extension Professor and Coordinator for Family and Consumer Sciences at Kentucky State University Cooperative Extension Program. And I'm really excited to be here with you today to talk about electric pressure cooker facts. Pressure cookers have been around for a very long time. The stovetop pressure cookers, also the pressure canners that people use to can fruits and vegetables. However, this newest iteration, the electric pressure cooker, has gained in popularity over the last decade. So why are so many people using pressure cookers? Because a pressure cooker, electric pressure cooker, can help reduce the time of cooking from 1/3 to a half. So imagine, instead of having to soak beans overnight and then cook them all day the next day, you can do that all in one step within an hour. Healthier meals, because with the electric pressure cooker, you're able to cook meals quickly in a sealed pressure environment, and so that's going to preserve the nutrients. Another important aspect of why pressure cookers are so important for today's families is because it helps you to save money. You can lower your cost of meals for your family, and you also can get cuts of meat that perhaps are not as tender, and within the pressure cooker, they become just melt in your mouth. And finally, one of the most important aspects that it has health reasons and financial reasons associated with it is that by having an electric pressure cooker, you can usually use less takeout, less trips to the drive-in, because the electric pressure cooker can help you get a healthy meal on the table in 30 minutes or less. So, today's electric pressure cooker is different again from the traditional ones that you would use on the stove, because they do have electronic computerized components and different functions that include being a slow cooker. It replaces a slow cooker, replaces a rice cooker, a steamer. Some can be used to make yogurt with the yogurt setting. Most of them have a saute browning function, and once it is completed, you can also set it to warm. So when looking to purchase an electric pressure cooker, there are some important aspects that you need to be aware of. So you need to make sure there is a functional safety valve that will lock when it's under pressure. So make sure that the gauge locks, because not only is it a safety aspect to keep the steam from escaping, if the steam does escape and it's not locking, then it's not going to build pressure and you're not going to get the desired effectiveness for your food product. A spring-loaded venting system that will deliver the most and consistent performance. And you also need to look for pressure settings of 10 psi or above. And on most electric pressure cookers, you can adjust the PSI, you can adjust the time, and for some of the functions like a slow cooker and saute, you can also adjust the temperature. Within most of the electric pressure cookers, there is a user's manual, and you need to have that close by. And also, if there is a website with that information, make sure you look that up in case something happens to your user manual. As there are dozens of brands of electric pressure cookers. There are some brands that people are more familiar with. A lot of times you hear Instant Pot, but that is a brand. But the type of appliance is electric pressure cooker. But each brand works a little differently, has a different quirks. So it's important for you to be familiar with the user's manual so you can get the most out of your electric pressure cooker. So something that is very important is what an electric pressure cooker is not. Now, a lot of electric pressure cookers, even the one that I myself have, has a canning function button. However, it's important to note that an electric pressure cooker is not the same as a pressure canner. And so even though you might see that button on the panel as a function, you should never use the electric pressure cooker for canning. You shouldn't use it for canning. First of all, the USDA does not support electric pressure canners for canning foods, because since the electric pressure cooker really runs on a computerized program cycle, it can't respond in the same way that a stovetop pressure canner can to make sure you have a high enough pressure at a long enough time to meet the standards of USDA. Also, for instance, it really comes into play for a lot of your low acid foods you might want to can, like green beans or carrots. Those are considered low acid, and again, you need the pressure, you need the sustained pressure and high temperature to get rid of the botulism spores and those different microbes, and you can't do that in a pressure canner. So, important to note that a pressure canner is designed to can low acid foods for storage in canning jars, because it boils at a higher temperature than just boiling water. And this is an example of a stovetop pressure canner. This illustrates the parts of a pressure cooker, an electric pressure cooker. So at the very top, there's a valve, a pressure valve. Then you have a lid locking mechanism. And so either you might have to snap it down or twist it to make sure that it is locked in place. And then you have a gasket on the inside of the lid. And the gasket is very important, because the gasket is the key to get into pressure, get into at least a 10 PSI pressure and maintaining the pressure. So it's very important that when you are cleaning your pressure cooker, that you're very judicious in cleaning it and very gentle with it, because if it gets stretched out of shape, if there's a nick or whatnot, then when you try to fit it back in the lid, it's not going to fit correctly. And again, you're not going to be able to get the high enough temperature and to get the pressure to effectively cook anything. Unlike the stovetop pressure canner or pressure cooker from yesterday, today's electric pressure cooker has an inner pot. Now, there are some schools of thought that prefer the nonstick inner pot. I've had one of those. There are some schools of thought that like the stainless steel inner pot. I've had one of those also. The aspect with the nonstick is just at some point you perhaps are going to scratch it and the coating is going to come off, whereas if you just have the stainless steel inner pot, you don't have to worry about the surface coming off. Then the bottom portion is a control panel or your base, and so you put your inner pot inside that base with your ingredients or whatnot. The control panel in the front is where most of your different types of items that you would make, say your slow cook, your rice cook, your yogurt making, there will be different buttons on the control panel, then a temperature sensor, and then at the very bottom is the heating element. And one thing that is not showing on here is the cord. And so those are all very important. Now, usually the inner pot can go in the dishwasher, but that's the only part of the pressure cooker, electric pressure cooker, that should go in the dishwasher. The base, since it has electricity going into the back of it, that should not go in the dishwasher. And the lid doesn't go in the dishwasher. And again, just as with the gasket, you have to be very careful with the lid, wash it by hand, and also depending on what you cooked, you're going to have to make sure you get those bits of food out of there each time, or again, it will not seal and you will not be able to cook anything effectively. It is not shown here, but a lot of your electric pressure cookers will have a little cup that might attach on the top of the base, because when you cook a lot of foods like rice, some of those that bubble up, there will be excess moisture, so it can come out into the little cup until you use a pressure valve at the top. So exactly how does the electric pressure cooker work? So as I indicated previously when talking about the lid and the gasket, that lid helps to contain that steam that accumulates when you heat the food up. And so as you heat it up, because of the gasket and the tightness of the seal, then that's going to make the pressure go up and it's going to increase the temperature. So again, the good thing about the electronic pressure cooker is that it can cook the food a third faster, half faster, because it can get to a higher temperature as opposed to what you might use on the stove or in the oven. So for instance, if you were to say boil a soup in a regular pot, it could get as hot as 212 degrees. However, if you were to put that same product within the electric pressure cooker, it'll go up to 266 degrees. And that makes a difference. And again, when you cook it faster in that sealed environment, it's going to give you a better product. So again, the first thing in using an electric pressure cooker is to read the manufacturer's directions and cautions for using the pressure cooker. And for appliances of this type, you don't want to get overzealous and fill it up to the top, because you're going to have a lot of leakage and it's not going to work effectively. So you never fill it more than 2/3 full. Never more than half full if you're making soups or stews. And another tip is to use items that don't have a lot of ingredients to them, 5 or less ingredients. And another aspect to that is good when using an electric pressure cooker is to make products that need to cook a long time but don't have a lot of ingredients. So for instance, stews, chili, my own favorite, collard greens, you can cook those very quickly. Another good tip is to combine foods that have common cooking times, and so, or either slice them so then it'll be even in terms of how they cook. Other information, when you're looking at items, that if items are hot or cold, the hot items are going to come to pressure quicker than cold ones, obviously. When you store them together, I know you don't want to lose your pieces, but it's recommended that you don't store your pressure cooker with the lid on, because there's going to be more wear and tear. And again, it's important to note that that gasket is the key to that pressure cooker working effectively and having that seal. So sometimes you might have a recipe that you like to make, and it may not be in the cookbook that comes with your pressure cooker. So see if you can find something similar and adapt it. For instance, I mentioned my collard greens. There's no recipe in there for collard greens, but I found a recipe for another vegetable and just use that as a guide. And to reiterate, it's going to take 1/3 to a half time off your cooking. So you want to reduce your cooking liquid by at least half. So you need to use at least a cup of water for meats, and a cup and a half if you're going to be cooking for longer than 45 minutes. Now, one thing that's important to do, all electric pressure cookers have a browning feature. So for instance, if you're making chili, you're making soup, what you can do is first you can put the onions, garlic, or maybe your stew meat in and use the saute function to brown those items, because then it'll give it more flavor, better results. So use the saute function to brown those items, your meats, your onions and garlic. And then after you saute, then you can put everything in and proceed with the pressure cooking aspect. Important aspects to know about also, as I stated earlier, if you have a Ninja, if you have a Geek Chef, if you have an Instant Pot, they all have different idiosyncrasies, and so you might have different results based upon those different electric pressure cookers. So if you see recipes on the internet and cookbooks, again, compare those with the recommendations of your manufacturers. And I know in Cooperative Extension, we really like to have kids in the kitchen with us when we're working, but for electric pressure cookers, that is not a go. Electric pressure cookers are not child friendly. I repeat, electric pressure cookers are not child friendly. They get very hot. And though the electric pressure cooker is safer, more convenient than your stovetop pressure cooker, children should not operate them, and especially do not let them anywhere around when you're releasing the pressure. Because when you release the pressure after it's done cooking, it's like a little volcano of steam that's going up. And so as an adult, you know to stay away from it. As an adult, you wouldn't want to touch it, but if you did, it won't be as bad, but you don't want children dealing with this. So, what are some of the popular sizes of electric pressure cookers? They come in various sizes. Now, with the pressure cooker, smaller is actually better. So if you're just empty nesters, just you and your partner, or you're single, you can still avail yourself to the benefits of the electric pressure cooker. You just get a smaller one. If you don't see one on the shelves in your local stores, if you go online, you could probably find a smaller one. So again, don't think that the electric pressure cookers are for large families. There's something that can accommodate you also. So for a 4-quart pressure cooker, it'll give you 3 to 4 servings. A 6-quart pressure cooker will give you 5 to 7 servings of most products, and 8-quart gives you 7 plus. Now, most of the recipes that you're going to see online or in the cookbooks are gauged for the 6-quart pressure cooker. That's the most popular one on the market. But again, it's important for you then to gauge how big your pressure cooker is and then try and titrate your recipes to go along with that. So I wanted to share with you just a few ideas of foods that you can prepare in an electric pressure cooker. As I stated in the opening, the dry beans like kidney beans, pinto beans, those can be cooked from dry to done in 1 hour. Barbecue ribs, you would have to cut them into smaller pieces, perhaps 3 to 4 ribs, but those can be prepared in an hour also. Frozen ingredients, I have a recipe that I'll be demonstrating later on, which is freezer chili. Unlike other cooking methods, the frozen items can be placed in an electric pressure cooker. So you can put a frozen piece of meat in there, whatnot, and it'll bring it up to pressure, and you're good. Other foods you can prepare in the pressure cooker includes cakes and cheesecakes. Now, that's not the first thing you think of when using an electric pressure cooker, but I have made a lemon cheesecake in an electric pressure cooker. You have to use a 6-inch pan and place it on a rack, but you can make cakes, cheesecakes, different items in a pressure cooker. And finally, one of the reasons that I really enjoy using the electric pressure cooker, and from other individuals I've spoken with, is because during the holiday hustle and bustle, your stovetop is usually busy, your oven is usually busy, but you can use your electric pressure cooker to make holiday side dishes and free up that precious stove and oven time, and it will not add to the heat in the kitchen. So that is another reason why the electric pressure cooker is so useful.